Hello knitters, Barbara Benson here. I am an independent knitwear designer who also likes to make videos here on my YouTube channel, Watch Barbara Knit. Make sure to check in the description notes below the video where you will find links to all of my online shenanigans, including how to get my patterns to knit up for yourself, how to join the Watch Barbara Knit Facebook group, and how to support me on Patreon. Additionally, there will be a link to a free downloadable PDF that has information that you will find in the upcoming video, so watch for that. And of course, if you like this video, please click that like button, give it the thumbs up, and subscribe to my channel if you want to be notified whenever I upload a new video. Today, we are talking about something that is a little bit the bane of my yarn store existence. I mean, it's not the absolute worst thing, but it is something that leads to confusion and frustration and long conversations with newer knitters. I really try to keep negativity off of this channel, but this is just something that if I was pushed, I do not like. I appreciate what the people who created it were trying to do, and I can see that it has elements of usefulness, but for me, in my boots on the ground experience working in a yarn store and as a designer working with knitters, it really just creates more confusion than it solves problems, and that is the standardized yarn weight system from the Craft Yarn Council. Now, again, I applaud them for making this, and I will put a link to the Craft Yarn Council in the description notes. They are a wonderful resource for the industry in both knitting and crocheting. You should definitely go check out their website. There's just an amazing amount of stuff there and information. It has a lot of detail, especially if you might want to learn how to teach knitting and things like that. But really, my dislike for this particular element does not in any way extend to a dislike for the organization or the absolutely wonderful stuff they do. It's just this is a pet peeve of mine. It is one thing that drives me a little bit off the edge. Now, the idea behind it was to create standardization in yarn weights, which, you know what? Frankly, that's awesome because it is a little bit of the wild, wild west out there. What different companies and manufacturers call one weight, another manufacturer is going to call another weight, and it gets a little confusing. And it's one of the reasons why doing a gauge swatch is so very, very important. But the solution, I don't like it. And so what I'm going to do is I created a graphic so that y'all can see, for those of you who are more visual learners, you can see what I'm talking about while I'm talking about it. But I am going to explain it verbally because there are vision impaired people who use YouTube who aren't going, I can't just say, look at this, look at this, look at this, because they can't really see it. So here we go. Here's the graphic. Now, across the top, you will see the little symbols that look like a yarn ball with the band around it, and they have a number on it. You will find these symbols on yarns, but mostly they're going to be on yarns that are manufactured by larger yarn companies and larger commercial mills. They're very commonly found on yarns that you're going to get at like Hobby Lobby or Michael's or Joann's, and into other yarn. Some of the local yarn store yarns is going to have it. Most of the indie dyers and dyers of luxury yarns do not use this particular symbol, but I downloaded the symbols from their website, and all credit to them. And it's really, actually, the symbols are great. They're very recognizable. The little yarn bowl, it has the number on it, and it has the name of the yarn weight below it. And what happens, and the reason why I make this video, is I will get a relatively new or inexperienced knitter come in and say, I'm looking for a number 4 yarn. And I kind of get a deer in the headlights look because I don't have this memorized, because I don't use yarn numbers at all when I'm thinking about and designing and substituting yarns. So I always have to go and look up what yarn weights the numbers correspond to, which is why I have also taken this chart that you see below here or above. I don't know where it's going to end up. And I've created a PDF of it so that if you find this video useful and you want this as a cheat sheet, there'll be a link in the description below to my PayHip store where you can go and download it for free so you can print it out or have it on your computer to have a reference, a cheat sheet for it. So the categories, the CYC categories are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, as you can see. 0 is lace, 1 is super fine, 2 is fine, 3 is light, 4 is medium, 5 is bulky, 6 super bulky, 7 jumbo. And what I've done is I've made this line so that you can see it running from one side to the other, or it's probably maybe this side to this side, I don't know, going from lightest to heaviest. Below on the chart, you can see the more common weights, yarn weights, lined up under their corresponding number categories. And I hope you might be able to see why this frustrates me. And it's because the standards lump weights, like put them together in categories where they're not really substitutable. They're not the same thing. If you look at 4, it includes both worsted and Aran weight yarn. And those two yarns are not the same weight, and they are not necessarily substitutable in a pattern. Now, in patterns where fit is not really a hugely important thing, yeah, you can get a little fast and loose with it. But the thing is the amount of yardage you're going to get in a single skein of worsted rate is going to be like in the 200 yard range, but the amount of yardage you're going to get in a skein of Aran weight can be down in the 180 or 170 category because it's a heavier yarn. So you definitely aren't going to have one-to-one substitution if your pattern calls for X number of balls. You're going to have to do math, but you usually have to do that math anyway. It just creates a more general pot to put the sizes in that I think sacrifices too much precision in the differences between yarns. And the analogy, as I said, I had a very long conversation with a new knitter, and it was really hard for them to understand because they're like, it just seems so complicated. And really, the CYC is trying to make it easy, but the thing is, there's more sizes than they're trying to make them be. And the analogy I came up with was clothing sizes. So if you have clothing and it fits a range of people from size 2 to size 18, and then you take those and just break them up into small, medium, and large, you're going to have like small B size 2 through 6 or 8, and then medium is 8 to 10, or a 12, and then 14, 16, 18 is a large. And what you create is a situation where nothing fits anybody right. In the small, the small, if it's big enough to fit a 6 or an 8, it's going to be too big on the 2. And if it's not going to swallow the 2, it's going to be tight on the 6 or 8. So if fit doesn't matter, it's not a huge deal. But if fit matters, if gauge matters, if how much yardage you have matters, then it's important. So on the chart, you can see lace is 0. Lace is really possibly the most egregious catch-all category, because the 0 number, the lace, includes thread weight, cobweb weight, and lace weight yarns. And you will see there's another spot here where what you can see is I just inserted general stitches per inch. Now, again, they can be knit at anything, but this is just generally if a ball band has and says stitches per inch, this is in general what it's going to say. I will refer you to my video on ball band gauge versus yarn pattern call for gauge because that's a whole different rant. So, and gauge on like cobweb weight, because it's normally knit on a bigger needle, can get a little weird. But so you have these 3 very distinctly different sizes of yarn all lumped in together under 0, and they're not necessarily substitutable. Then you get into 1, which is super fine, which you can have both light fingering and regular fingering weight in those. Regular fingering weight a skein of regular fingering weight can be anywhere from like 395 up to like 430 yards per 100 grams. Whereas when you're getting into light fingering weight, you can have 440 up to like 460 or 470 yards in a single skein that's 100 grams. So it is substantially thinner, and it's going to knit differently, and it's going to knit at a different gauge. And then you have sport. Sport weight has like a category all in its own. Now, the actual yarn standards chart that I will link to below actually has baby in this category, and baby isn't really a yarn weight that I know that there's any like standardization for. And the thing that's confusing is that they also have baby listed under 1. So it says 1 is baby and 2 is baby, which doesn't make any sense to me. So baby weight can be fingering weight, or baby weight can be sport weight. So baby weight's kind of not a useful term at all. And then you jump up into number 3, which has both DK and light worsted in it. And DK and light worsted is kind of interchangeable, but not always. Again, the amount of yardage you get per skein is going to shift. But as I said at the beginning, 4 is where you really run into what can be significant issues, because 4 contains both worsted and Aran weight. Aran is heavier than worsted. It's, if you try to substitute Aran into a worsted weight pattern and you knit it to the worsted weight gauge, you're going to get a very dense fabric, which you might want, and it might be fine, but it might not. And if you're trying to substitute like for like, knowing that the pattern is designed in worsted is important, whereas yarn weight 4 is vague. And then at the top end, you've got 5, 6, 7, bulky, super bulky, and jumbo. And it seems like, why do we have so much room at the top end of this scale when we've squished the bottom end of this scale and packed things together? So, and really, bulkies are kind of a free-for-all. They're all different kinds, and every time you think you've reached the top end of a chunky yarn, they make something that's fatter. You get into arm knitting, and you get into these huge roving things that people are knitting. So this is the chart that I have made, and trying to explain why, if you go into a local yarn store and you might not get exactly what you're looking for if you just go in and say, I want a number 3 yarn, or I want a number 0 yarn. Those are not, it's not enough information. It's not specific enough information. The best thing to come into a store with is the actual pattern that you're trying to make, or the name of the actual yarn you are trying to acquire or substitute for. Because if you have the name of the yarn, then as a person who works in a yarn store, I can pull out my phone and look up that yarn and see how many yards per skein there is and what the weight of the skein is. And by looking at that, I can then more effectively recommend a substitute if we don't carry that yarn. So having that information, print out the pattern, or write down the name of the yarn, or at a bare minimum write down, you know, is it fingering weight, is it worsted weight, and or write down how many yards per ball you're looking at and the weight of the ball. It's just, the more information we have, the better we can substitute, and the better we can help you plan a successful project, or you can plan a successful project on your own with this knowledge. But just saying, I need a number 3, it doesn't provide. I'm definitely, you're going to look at me and I'm going to go blink, blink. And then I'm going to look up and be like, ooh, trying to remember what the number translates to in what I think of in my head. And you know what? It might just be me. If the numbers work better for you, if the numbers help you remember better, that is fine. I'm just talking about something that, you know, kind of gets my goat. So that is my little rant on the standardized weight system. Again, I am not in any way saying that the Craft Yarn Council didn't work beautifully hard on this, and that it is useful. And if this is the system you like, you go for it, and definitely go check out their website to see all of the other incredibly useful information that they have on the site. It is a wonderful resource. And as I mentioned, if you like that little chart I made and you feel like it might be useful to you, there will be a link in the description below where you can go and download the PDF for free. I've never done this before, but I think I figured out how to make it work. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, click that like button. And if you would like to be notified whenever I upload a new video, please subscribe to my channel and select notifications. Thank you so much.